Hello, friends. The case of Amelia Dyer is one of the darkest chapters in criminal history. Born in 1837 in Bristol, England, she became infamous as one of the most prolific child murderers in recorded history. Dyer started her career as a nurse and midwife. But in Victorian England, there was a disturbing practice known as baby farming. This involved taking in unwanted infants, usually from unmarried mothers, for a fee with the promise of providing care or arranging adoption. Many desperate women, shunned by society, gave their babies to such farmers, believing they would find safety and a future. Dyer, however, turned this into a system of exploitation and murder. Rather than caring for the infants, she would take the money and neglect or deliberately kill the children, often by strangulation with tape or fabric, to reduce costs and avoid detection. For decades, she managed to evade the law, frequently moving towns and changing her identity. While there were suspicions and even arrests at times, the lack of strict regulations and the stigma around illegitimacy allowed her to continue. In May 1896, her crimes came to light when the body of a baby was found in the River Thames, wrapped in brown paper, with her address still marked on it. Investigations led police to discover a shocking number of infants had passed through her care, many never accounted for. It is estimated that Amelia Dyer may have killed over 200 to possibly 400 babies, making her one of the most prolific serial killers in history. She was arrested, tried, and quickly found guilty. On June 10, 1896, she was executed by hanging at Newgate Prison in London. Her case sparked massive public outrage and helped push reforms in child protection laws in Britain, leading to stricter adoption and foster care regulations. While Amelia Dyer became the most infamous, she was not the only one. Baby farming in the 19th and early 20th centuries was a grim industry in many countries, especially Britain, Australia, and New Zealand, where poverty, social shame, and lack of welfare drove desperate mothers into the arms of such women. In Australia, women like Frances Lydia Alice Knorr, known as the baby farming murderess, were exposed for killing infants placed in their care. Knorr, originally from London, moved to Melbourne in the 1890s. She advertised to take in babies for a fee, but instead of providing care, she murdered them and buried their bodies in the backyards of rental homes. Her crimes were discovered when new tenants found the remains of children in gardens. She was executed by hanging in 1894, 2 years before Amelia Dyer's own execution. In New Zealand, Minnie Dean became infamous as the only woman ever executed in the country. Like Dyer and Knorr, she took in unwanted babies for payment. Witnesses testified that she often carried infants in a hatbox, and police later discovered that some of those babies never survived. After investigations, several infant skeletons were found on her property, buried in her garden. Dean was convicted of murder and hanged in 1895, her story sending shockwaves through the public and changing child welfare laws in New Zealand. England, Margaret Waters also gained notoriety in the 1870s. Known as the Brixton baby farmer, she routinely starved infants to death after collecting money from desperate mothers. Arrested in 1870, she was convicted of murdering several children and was executed by hanging. Her case was one of the first major exposures of the cruelty hidden behind baby farming. These women shared a disturbing pattern. They thrived in societies that offered little support to single mothers, where illegitimacy carried immense stigma, and poverty left families with no choice. They exploited a cruel loophole, taking money under the guise of adoption, only to kill infants to minimize expenses. Their actions not only horrified the public, but also forced governments to create stricter adoption procedures, regulate foster care, and introduce oversight into childcare practices. Together, Amelia Dyer, Frances Knorr, Minnie Dean, and Margaret Waters represent the darkest side of baby farming. Their crimes revealed how social neglect and systemic failure could create conditions for mass infanticide under the guise of childcare. most infamous baby farmers and their crimes, showing how these tragedies unfolded across different regions and decades, 1860s, 1870s. The rise of baby farming in England during the Victorian era, illegitimacy carried deep shame, and single mothers were often abandoned by family and society. Baby farming became widespread as a hidden industry. Women advertised in newspapers, offering to adopt or foster babies for a lump sum. Many of these infants were starved, neglected, or deliberately killed. 70. Margaret Waters, England. Known as the Brixton baby farmer, Waters was one of the first publicly exposed baby farmers. She accepted infants into her home for money, but instead of raising them, she starved and neglected them until they died. After several infant deaths were discovered, she was convicted and hanged in 1870. Her execution made baby farming a national scandal in Britain, 92 to 1894. Frances Knorr, Australia. Originally from London, Knorr moved to Melbourne where she placed ads offering to take in infants. When police investigated her lodgings, they discovered multiple tiny graves in the gardens of rental properties she had lived in. The press nicknamed her the baby farming murderess. She was found guilty and executed by hanging in 1894, 1895. Minnie Dean, New Zealand. Dean ran what she claimed to be a boarding house for children. Witnesses recalled her traveling with infants stuffed inside a hatbox or a tin trunk. When police searched her property, they found several baby skeletons buried in her garden. She was arrested, convicted of murder, and executed by hanging in 1895, the only woman ever executed in New Zealand. 96. Amelia Dyer, England. Perhaps the most notorious of all, Amelia Dyer's crimes spanned decades. She promised young mothers that their unwanted babies would be cared for, but instead she strangled them, often with white tape, and disposed of their bodies in rivers. When the Thames yielded bundles of tiny corpses wrapped in brown paper with her address, police uncovered the horror. Estimates suggest she murdered between 200 and 400 babies, making her one of history's most prolific serial killers. She was executed at Newgate Prison in 1896. Impact and legacy. These cases led to widespread outrage. The British government began tightening adoption and childcare laws, including the Infant Life Protection Act, which introduced stricter oversight on anyone taking in infants. Similar reforms spread across Australia and New Zealand. What had once been a semi-accepted underground practice was now viewed as criminal child murder, and it helped lay the groundwork for modern foster care and adoption systems. Together, these women illustrate not only personal cruelty but also a tragic reflection of the times. Poverty, stigma, and a lack of social safety nets created an environment where desperate mothers felt they had no choice, and predators like Amelia Dyer and others exploited that desperation on a horrifying scale. These women became symbols of society's darkest failures. They were not just isolated killers but products of a broken system that left poor mothers with no options and infants at the mercy of profiteers. Amelia Dyer's sheer scale of killing makes her stand out as one of the deadliest female serial killers in world history.